Two wins in 4 days for the Dallas Cowboys as they just beat the New York Giants, and we're talking about it today. What is up, everyone, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central. Even on Thanksgiving, we are around to talk some Cowboys football with you. Hope that you're having a fun Thanksgiving. Hope that you are surrounded with family and friends. And if for any reason you are not, I hope that you're still having a good time. And I hope that we can talk some Cowboys football today. As always, I am thankful for getting to talk about the Cowboys with you. We do this on a daily basis, so it's pretty fun to be here for even a special day on the calendar. And it's particularly fun this time around because the Cowboys beat the Giants. So they got themselves a win on Thursday. And it wasn't particularly fun at times, but there were some pretty cool moments throughout the game. And what I mean by that is when the game was 13-10, it was at times it was a boring game, right? I think this was the kind of game that you would expect out of a matchup where the two teams are combining for 6 wins 13 weeks into the season. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. This is the Cowboys and the Giants on Thanksgiving. On one hand, you've got a Cooper Rush. On the other, you've got Drew Luck. It was never going to be about the fireworks, but we'll run through some takeaways, here before we get out of here. Maybe this will be on the shorter side of the broadcast, but I'll hit you with some of the takeaways, and I'm looking forward to reading yours on the chat if you want to dive in. Gregory, what's up? Thank you for being here. Shout out to everyone who is saying hi in the chat, both on Facebook and on YouTube. As always, I'm excited to talk about this game with you. I think there was a particular area where the Cowboys outclassed the Giants on Thursday, and that was in the trenches. Now, that goes for both sides of the ball, though. I'll start with the defensive side, where Micah Parsons being back has really provided a new face to the Cowboys defense. This is not the same product that we were seeing since he got injured in Week 4 against the Giants until his return just recently, a couple of weeks ago. This is a totally different defense. And I think it starts with the fact that Mike Zimmer has so many ways to weaponize Micah and elevate other talents across the defensive line that now that number 11 is back. Clear example for me was that Donovan Wilson sack. Donovan Wilson walks up to the line of scrimmage, stands up next to Micah Parsons on the edge. Donovan ends up blitzing while Micah Parsons ends up crossing the offensive line and trying to get a rush from the interior going, and Wilson gets the sack. And we saw that on the Commanders game as well, where Micah Parsons was being used, in a way where they're trying to isolate him, but also in a way that is freeing up other defenders around him to deal some damage. And that is so fun to watch. I think Dan Quinn was awesome at it in 2023. And I think that Mike Zimmer in these last couple of weeks has found his rhythm as well. Now, the Cowboys, they're not doing anything fancy on the back end. They're playing a lot of man-to-man coverage. They're playing a lot of single high safety. They're doing a lot of Dan Quinn stuff, honestly, but it's working because Micah Parsons is being able to win in the trenches. And I think we're seeing some of the best football from Osa Odighizuwa. We're seeing Carl Lawson play better. Maybe it wasn't the best Chauncey Golston game today, but Carl Lawson stepped up, right? Had that big sack. Osa Odighizuwa had himself a sack. And there's a lot to talk about with this defense, but I think they just honestly had the Giants beat up front. Carl Lawson, there were some of these rushes where he won, where it was just one-on-one straight up, I'm better than you. And that was pretty cool to watch too, where it wasn't necessarily that Carl Lawson was being a free rusher or anything like that, just one-on-one, winning on his rep and getting the sack, getting the pressure. Cool to watch. Now, on the other side of the ball, and no, actually, let me say this. The Cowboys sacked Drew Luck 6 times. 6 times in this game. No player had 2 sacks on it. Micah and Massey split up a sack, so they were at 1.5. Well, Micah was. Massey Smith was at half a sack, but they had 6 sacks and no one had 2. This was a party for everyone. Come feast on Drew Lock, man. Have some fun. And it was pretty cool to watch that the Cowboys defense was being so dominant up front. Now, if you take a quick look at the offense, they also were dominant up front in the trenches. I think that's what makes the difference in this game. Mentioned Drew Lock was sacked 6 times. Cooper Rush was sacked 0 times. In fact, Cooper Rush was hit 3 times total. Micah Parsons alone had 4 hits on the quarterback. Carl Lawson had 5. As a team, the Giants had 3. Now, there's a combination of things that, goes into that number being possible. First and foremost, the Cowboys simply played good football up front. That goes for everyone. Even Chuma Edoga, when he subbed in for an injured Tyler Guyton. Brock Hoffman once again replacing Zach Martin at right guard. Cooper Beebe, Tyler Smith back in the lineup. He did his thing in pass pro. Even Terrence Steele. But mostly also kind of the game plan, right? The Cowboys, since entering this game, Cooper Rush had the second fastest time to throw in the NFL. He's getting rid of the football quickly. They're doing so by scheme as well. And I respect the offensive line for just having the Cowboys quarterback just so clean throughout the entire game. Same versus the Commanders, right? So it's back-to-back top-tier performances from an offensive line that hasn't even played its starters in the last couple of weeks, at least not with Zach Martin. They've missed him for the last couple of games. Obviously, Tyler wasn't around for the Commanders win, but he was around for this one. So just awesome to see that. And then in the running game, Rico Dowdle going for 112 yards on 22 carries, averaged 5.1 per carry. He had a touchdown. They were opening blocks for him. They were opening holes for him. That was also a big positive. So just overall across the board, I think the Cowboys offensive line and defensive line won this game for Dallas. I'll say something about Rico Dowdle's runs. Obviously, he had a 20-plus yard gain, and then he picked up some other explosive rushes throughout the game. Just another example of how in 2025, no matter what you're doing at running back, no matter if you're drafting Ashton Yinty in the first round, no matter if you're signing somebody in free agency, Rico Dowdle has to be a part of your plan going forward. I don't think he will command a crazy extension, but he has to be paid, I think, for Dallas because he's been so good. Top 10 in success rate pretty much for the entire year. You got to give this guy a new deal by the time we get to free agency. Now, having said that, I want to shout out Terrence Steele for his block on the touchdown because we've knocked Terrence Steele so much this season because he's been a liability in pass pro for the most part. But how about him in that Rico Dowdle touchdown, getting to the defensive end, creating a lot of movement, disengaging and just climbing to the second level, taking care of the linebacker. Rico had it easy thanks to Terrence Steele. So that was another cool moment, standout moment from this game. Just overall offensive line, defensive line. I think takeaway number 1 has to be the Cowboys dominated in the trenches. And I'll say number 2 is just Rico Dowdle is absolutely legit on a similar note, right? We got to see more Rico Dowdle. Shout out to everyone who is joining the chat, by the way. We also got Joey Bella out there in the chat. We've got Isidro Garcia. We've got none other than Joe Gonzalez and Scotty as well. Happy Thanksgiving to you too and to everyone around here. He says, Brock Hoffman and this offensive line is getting better. And yeah, man, Brock Hoffman has been an exciting watch at right guard. Took him like under 5 plays to get into trouble, right? He was shoving people around. He's a violent man on that football field. And between whistles, he's a violent man as well. So I'm glad that he's finding a role now that Zach Martin is injured and not playing these games. Hopefully he does get to return, though, pretty soon. Sorry. Another takeaway that I had for this game, and I'll just say this. How about the Marvin Overshown? Man, the Marvin Overshown, here's the thing about him. He's not a player that we are excited about because we think he's going to be able to start next year or something like that. he's someone that we are excited about because he might be in all pro type conversations next year. That's how good Overshown has been. Bear in mind, this is his first season actually playing because he missed his entire rookie year with a torn ACL. And we've seen him make plays every single week. And now he blows up a running back, finds a way to get going after that contact, tips the ball up in the air, catches it, takes it into the end zone. Marvin Overshown had a complete Thanksgiving feast in those 7 seconds, 8 seconds, however long that one went for. He is a bad man, as Anton says over there on the YouTube chat. But he said mofo. He's a bad mofo. Overshown is absolutely great, man. And he's one of these players where you can see the future, right? You can be like, worst case scenario, Overshown is an exciting athlete that will continue to make plays in a versatile way and maybe make some Pro Bowls, maybe not, but he's going to be a reliable starter. Best case scenario is this guy becomes a defensive superstar and is a foundational piece for the Cowboys moving forward. Like, that is the kind of excitement that I've got for Overshown's future right now. That play was wild. Like, that was the ultimate effort, I'll do it myself kind of play from the Marvin Overshown. I'm thankful that we got to watch that one for sure. We've talked about Overshown's tackling for the season, right? We've talked about the inconsistencies there, but even that seems to be getting better on a weekly basis. And Overshown is like the guy that you want at linebacker, but that you also are going to be willing to blitz consistently off the edge, over the A-gap. And man, I'm just excited about the way that he's being used right now by the Cowboys. Takeaway number 3 or 4. We've got a couple more here. I'm gonna touch on a slightly negative one. I'm gonna say CeeDee Lamb just simply has to be better. And I know CeeDee's playing hurt, and he deserves credit for what he's done this season, and he deserves credit for cleaning up the attitude when we were complaining about him having a negative energy when things were not going great for the Cowboys. And obviously he deserves credit for the receiver that he is. But you cannot have 3 drops in the first half. You just cannot. I think CeeDee Lamb came into this one leading the NFL in drops with 7, tied with another couple receivers, which sounds bad, but isn't that bad when you consider that he's one of the most targeted receivers in the league. And as such, he's going to have some of the most drops and everything. But you cannot have a breakdown like the one that CeeDee had in the first half, because that's what 3 drops in a half should be described as. You don't have your starting quarterback. You're playing with a backup. The last thing that your team needs is for you to have those hiccups. And I'm not going to say they were perfect passes from Cooper Rush, because I don't think they were, but he's got to make those catches. And at least 2 of those on those crossing routes those in-breaking routes that he's running, he makes those catches. He goes for God knows how many yards after the catch. So that part was frustrating for me, but I mean, it is what it is. I will give him the benefit of the doubt just because he was on a hot streak before we got to that point on Thursday versus the Giants. And one more takeaway here from me before I go into some more comments and just some overall thoughts about the Cowboys. The injuries at defensive back, they're getting ridiculous, man. Josh Butler went down, and you couldn't help but feel for him, right? Former UFL player, long road that he's been through to get to where he's at. A season and change in the practice squad for the Cowboys. Finally gets called up to the 53-man roster. Has a so-so game, and then follows it up with a dominant performance versus the Commanders. Then gets named as a captain, and he's having a decent outing, and then he suffers an injury that looked a little bit nasty, right? It looked like it hurt Josh Butler. And the Cowboys just placed Kalen Carson on injured reserve. They've dealt with other injuries, right? And Andrew Booth was inactive for this one. But suddenly, all they can do is turn to Izimu Kwamu and Kimon Hall, who has been recently signed to the 53-man roster after spending the start of the year with the Cowboys practice squad. Jordan Lewis had to be pushed outside. That's where we're at right now with the Cowboys defensive backs. Jordan Lewis had to go from nickel to the outside, and then they had Izimu Kwamu playing inside. So many injuries at cornerback, and it seemed like we were at a spot where the Cowboys had found a solid backup in Josh Butler, and then that was taken away with this injury. So maybe a negative takeaway as well, but that absolutely sucked, and it adds to the urgency of getting Trevon Diggs back on the field because the depth is so bad right now for the Cowboys. I agree with Gregory. He says they have to address the cornerback position. If we look forward to 2025, that is going to be a need that is going to go unnoticed by so many people again, I think. Because so many people are going to look at the cornerbacks and they're going to go, oh, okay, we've got Trevon, we've got Bland, and we are likely going to re-sign Jordan Lewis anyways. We're fine. We're set at a cornerback. Depth needs to be better because you cannot have enough cornerbacks in the NFL. And the Cowboys have lived that experience, not in 2024 only, but in 2023 as well. The difference in 2023 was when Trevon Diggs suffered a season-ending injury, you had Stephon Gilmore waiting for the shot, right? So you had Gilmore and you had Bland and you had Lewis, and you were spoiled at a cornerback. As simple as that. As opposed to this year, when DaRon Bland was injured in training camp, and you had to go through Kellen Carson and Andrew Booth Jr. and now Monty and now Josh Butler, who finally turned out to be playable. And man, the Cowboys, they're going to have to do something about the cornerback position. Isidros says, question, Mo, will the front office bring back Brandon Cooks? He has been hurt most of the season, but I think he's still clearly wide receiver 2. I think they have to consider it because, to your point, Isidro, not only is he wide receiver 2, I don't think you have another wide receiver 2 in Dallas. And I know Jalen Tolbert has had some ups and downs, but if you go into 2025 trying to sell this narrative that Jalen Tolbert is going to be the number 2 guy on your offense, I'm going to be worried. So, to your point, if it's not Cooks, you better be bringing somebody else at wide receiver. There's got to be another number 2 on this offense because I'm not sure you can go into 2025 believing that it's going to be Jalen Tolbert, even though he's had his moments. Now, speaking of, that's another takeaway. Brandon Cooks, how about him? Only 3 catches, right? Only 16 yards. But 2 of those catches were absolutely clutch. One of those, old school Brandon Cooks route, horizontal route, in the end zone versus man-to-man coverage. You're betting on the speed, kind of similar to those shots that he also received from Dak Prescott in previous years versus the Chargers, for example, in 2023. But that play is also made it possible because of the pocket that Cooper Rush gets. Just awesome stuff again from the offensive line. And he just has to find Cooper Rush in the corner of the end zone. And then the last one, and I'll say this about the last sequence, I thought the Cowboys were extremely aggressive on the end of the game. I wasn't even comfortable with it, but I respect it, right? 1st and 5, they throw the football. They need to pick up the first down to kill the clock. They need to get the Giants to waste their timeouts. They don't care. They throw the football. And to Jalen Brooks, of all people, that was a weird moment. I was like, what? But, caught the ball, landed in bounds, so no worries there. And then on 3rd and 2, they go to the air again, and it's Cooper Rush targeting Brandon Cooks, who dives for the catch, and it's a pretty cool moment. So you got to give it to them. They made us suffer a little bit, but it worked out for the Cowboys. So shout out to them for that. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I won't keep you any longer. I know it's Thanksgiving, so I know some of you might have other plans, or maybe some of you want to go to sleep already. But I hope that you enjoyed the game. I hope that you're enjoying Thanksgiving. I am very thankful for being here and talking Cowboys football with you on a daily basis. It's really the coolest job in the world, and I couldn't be any more thankful for all of that. And also on the personal side of things, I'm thankful for my family and my friends and my girlfriend. And, it's just a cool day. So I hope that you're enjoying it. And DMs are always open on Twitter. I want to say that. And yeah, have a good one. And the Cowboys are 5-7. And we're going to have a lot to talk about next week. So it's going to be fun. See you Sunday and have a good one. Bye-bye.